Saturn is the most beautiful object in the solar system, and it might also be the strangest, because the more closely we look at it, the more it stops making sense. It is a giant ball of gas with no surface you could ever stand on. It is wrapped in rings so bright you can see them from Earth through a cheap telescope. Rings that, as far as we can tell, should not be there at all. There is a perfect six-sided shape carved into its north pole. It rains diamonds, and it is so light that if you could find an ocean big enough, the entire planet would float. Every one of those facts is real, and every one of them begins with the same word. Why does Saturn have rings? Why are they vanishing? Why is there a hexagon at the top of the planet? Why would a world 600 times bigger than Earth float like a cork? Let's take them one at a time, because the answers are even stranger than the questions. Start with the obvious one, the rings. From a distance, they look solid, like a single smooth disk of pale gold encircling the planet. They are not. If you flew up close, you would see that the rings are made of billions upon billions of separate pieces of ice and rock, ranging from grains of dust to chunks the size of houses, all orbiting Saturn in a sheet so wide it would almost reach from the Earth to the Moon. And yet, in most places, only about 10 meters thick, a structure tens of thousands of kilometers across, and as thin, by comparison, as a sheet of paper. But that only tells us what the rings are. It does not tell us why they exist. And here is where it gets uncomfortable, because every other planet's leftovers from its formation were swept up billions of years ago. So, where did all this ice come from? The leading answer is violent. The rings are most likely the corpse of something, a moon or a comet that wandered too close to Saturn and was torn apart. Get close enough to a giant planet, and its gravity pulls harder on the near side of an object than the far side, stretching it until the object simply comes apart. What was once a world becomes a ring of debris, smeared out into a glittering circle. Saturn, in other words, may be wearing the shattered remains of one of its own moons, and it is not finished destroying it. Here is the fact that should bother you most. The rings are not permanent. They are dying. When the Cassini spacecraft studied Saturn up close, it found something almost no one expected. The rings are raining onto the planet. Saturn's gravity and its magnetic field are slowly dragging the ring material down out of orbit. A steady drizzle of icy particles falling into the planet's atmosphere and vanishing. Scientists call it ring rain, and it is pouring down fast enough to fill an Olympic swimming pool every half hour. Run that forward, and the conclusion is staggering. The rings are temporary. In perhaps 100 million years, maybe a few hundred million, they will be gone, drained away into the planet, leaving Saturn bare. Which raises an even deeper question. If the rings are disappearing this quickly, they cannot be very old, or they would already be gone. And the evidence agrees. The rings appear to be startlingly young, possibly only 100 or a few hundred million years old. Which means that for most of Earth's history, Saturn had no rings at all. The dinosaurs may have looked up at a bare, ringless Saturn. We are alive during the brief window a cosmic blink when Saturn happens to be wearing its rings. Look at them while you can. Now look at the North Pole of the planet and try not to feel uneasy. Because there, wrapped around the very top of Saturn, is a shape that nature is not supposed to make. A hexagon. A perfect six-sided geometric figure, 30,000 kilometers across, wide enough to swallow 4 Earths, carved into the swirling clouds and holding its shape year after year, decade after decade. We have known about it since the Voyager spacecraft first glimpsed it in the 1980s. Cassini watched it for years, and it does not drift. It does not break apart. It just sits there, turning, a flawless hexagon on a planet of chaos. Why? Why would clouds arrange themselves into geometry? The answer is a jet stream, a river of wind racing around the pole. Under the right conditions, a fast-flowing current bordered by slower air can bend itself into a stable, repeating wave, and when that wave closes into a loop, it can form a polygon. Scientists have even recreated 6-sided shapes in spinning tanks of fluid in the laboratory. So we think we understand it. And yet, to look at it, a single sharp-edged hexagon larger than our entire planet, spinning at the top of an alien world, is to feel just for a moment like you are looking at something that was made on purpose. Here is one that sounds like a joke until you realize it is true. Saturn would float. Saturn is enormous, the second largest planet in the solar system, more than 9 times the width of Earth, big enough to hold over 700 Earths inside it. But it is almost all gas, mostly hydrogen and helium, and it is spread out so thinly that, on average, the entire planet is less dense than water. If you could find a bathtub large enough and somehow drop Saturn into it, the planet would not sink. It would bob on the surface like a cork, a world that could swallow 700 Earths, light enough to float. It tells you something important about what Saturn really is. It is not a solid place at all. There is no ground, no surface, no shore. If you tried to land on Saturn, you would simply fall through thickening cloud, through crushing pressure, through layers that go from gas to something like liquid, down toward a small, dense core buried at the center of all that emptiness. You would never reach a bottom you could stand on. There isn't one. Go deeper into that atmosphere, and it gets stranger still. High up in Saturn's clouds, lightning storms tear apart molecules of methane, freeing their carbon. That carbon drifts downward as soot, and as it falls, the pressure builds and builds and builds until it is crushing harder than anything on Earth. Under that pressure, scientists believe, the carbon is squeezed first into graphite and then, deeper still, into diamond. It means that somewhere beneath the calm golden clouds of Saturn, it may quite literally be raining diamonds, hailstones of solid gemstone, drifting down through the dark toward the core in a storm that has no end. No one will ever hold one. No human will ever see it. But the physics says it is there, falling right now in the crushing dark. A planet that rains diamonds, and almost no one ever talks about it. But maybe the strangest thing about Saturn is not Saturn at all. It is one of its moons. Out among Saturn's dozens of moons is a small frozen world called Enceladus. From the outside, it is nothing special, a white ball of ice, barely 500 kilometers across, so cold its surface is frozen solid. It should be dead. And then Cassini flew past its south pole and saw something impossible. Geysers, towering jets of water vapor and ice blasting up out of cracks in the surface and shooting hundreds of kilometers into space. A frozen moon spraying water into the void. Why? Because beneath that shell of ice, kept warm and liquid by the constant flexing of Saturn's gravity, there is an ocean. A global, salty, liquid water ocean hidden under the frozen crust of a tiny moon 1 billion kilometers from the sun. And when Cassini flew through those geysers and tasted them, it found not just water, but salts and organic molecules, the chemical ingredients of life. We went to Saturn to look at the rings, and we may have found on one of its smallest moons one of the best places in the entire solar system to go looking for life. And Enceladus is not even the only one. Turn to the largest of Saturn's moons, Titan, and the strangeness only deepens. Titan is bigger than the planet Mercury, and unlike almost every other moon in the solar system, it has a thick atmosphere, a dense, hazy orange sky so soupy that you cannot see the ground from above. For a long time, that haze hid everything. We had no idea what was underneath. When we finally looked through it, with Cassini's radar and with a small probe called Huygens that we dropped through the clouds, we found something hauntingly familiar. A landscape with rivers, lakes, vast seas, with shorelines and channels carved by flowing liquid. Titan is the only other place in the entire solar system that we know of with stable liquid on its surface, pooling in seas, falling as rain, cutting rivers into the ground. But the liquid is not water. Titan is so far from the sun and so cold, nearly minus 180 degrees, that water there is frozen as hard as rock. The rivers and seas of Titan are made of liquid methane. It rains a fuel like gasoline from an orange sky into black seas on a world where water is stone. Why does this matter? Because Titan is, in a strange way, a frozen mirror of the early Earth, a world with a thick atmosphere, with weather, with rivers and seas, and a rich chemistry of organic molecules. It is almost everything our planet once was, run on different chemistry at a different temperature. And some scientists quietly wonder whether some exotic kind of life we have never imagined, could be hiding in those cold methane seas. 2 moons of Saturn, 2 oceans, one of water, one of fuel. Both of them places we now dream of going back to. There is one more question, and it is the one that stays with me. Almost everything you have just heard, the ring rain, the hexagon up close, the ocean of Enceladus, the seas of Titan, we learned from a single spacecraft, Cassini. For 13 years, it circled Saturn, sending home the discoveries that rewrote everything we thought we knew about this planet. And in 2017, we destroyed it, on purpose. By then, Cassini was running out of fuel, and its scientists faced a problem. If they simply let it drift, one day it might crash, uncontrolled, into Enceladus or Titan. And Cassini had left Earth carrying Earth's own microbes. If even one of them had survived the journey, we could have contaminated the very oceans we now believed might hold life. We could go looking for aliens and find only ourselves. So, they made a choice. They aimed Cassini at Saturn itself, and on its final orbit, they sent it diving down, through the rings it had spent years studying, into the atmosphere of the planet it had come to know, where the rising heat and pressure tore it apart, and the craft that had shown us all of this became, in its last moments, a few more atoms falling into Saturn, like the ring rain, like the diamonds. It kept transmitting until the very end, sending data as it burned, choosing knowledge over survival right down to the final second. We did not destroy Cassini out of carelessness. We destroyed it out of respect, to protect the worlds it had found. And there is something almost unbearably human in that. To send a machine across 1 billion kilometers, to fall in love with what it shows us, and then to sacrifice it, deliberately, to keep those new worlds clean. So, why is Saturn so strange? Because every time we have looked closer, it has answered one question with 3 more. We learned what the rings are made of, and learned that they are dying. We explained the hexagon, and still cannot quite believe it. We weighed the planet and found it would float. We followed the diamonds down into the dark, and we went looking at a frozen moon and found an ocean that might be alive. That is what Saturn really is. Not just the most beautiful planet, but a reminder that the universe is under no obligation to make sense to us. That the most familiar sights in the night sky are still, when you look closely, almost completely mysterious. The rings will be gone in 100 million years. The hexagon will keep turning long after we are gone. And somewhere beneath the clouds, the diamonds are still falling. We are lucky to be here now, in the brief moment when we can look up and see Saturn wearing its rings, and ask the only honest question there is: why? If you want to keep asking it with us, subscribe. The solar system is far stranger than you were ever told, and we are only just beginning to understand.